Welcome to the Founders Lounge, where business meets bullshit and everything in between.
Yeah, you're allowed to. We got a little banter in the background, Jamie. I appreciate it. Long story short, though, I'm in the same boat. I always make fun of my dad for doing it, but the lights drive me nuts.
The
I
lights are
pull up to the
my
house at night and every light's on.
dude. My youngest sleeps downstairs. She's got her own room downstairs. Every damn day I walk up, go around the corner. Every light in the staircase is on. The big room, the big,
What do you think the shift? Why do we were like that when we were kids? Where's this shift where it becomes like
when you start paying the freaking bill?
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, no, you're right.
Dude, I can remember, I don't know, how long? Maybe 20, 21 when I moved out the second time. And I got my power bill. I'm like, holy hell.
Oh yeah.
From then on, dude, it was like,
you feel it, man. No, it's different. You know, I've actually cut the lights off to their room as a joke, but it was also a learning moment. Like, it's like this stuff's not free. It doesn't just come out of the wall for free. That's what I always tell them. They don't care.
Facts.
What are you getting into, man?
I thought today what I wanted to talk about. So, for guys, if you haven't followed the show for a while, I founded a company called Integrity Brands in 2022.
Yeah.
And why did I found this brand? Because after spending some time in the franchise space, in the franchise world, I'm going to try to figure out how to phrase this so I'm not an asshole.
Good luck.
Maybe. I kind of got a disdain taste in my mouth for like broker networks. Like big, I'm not going to name them, but like the big franchise brokerage networks. I'm just not a fan. You know, they're good people. I'm not knocking them personally.
It's just a different model than you prefer.
It's just that practice I've never been a fan of. I just think that, you know, people, when they think about going and investing in a franchise, they're taking their entire life savings and doing this. And I feel like they're getting put with these brokers or franchise coaches. I'm using my fingers in quotes for you guys that aren't watching. You know, and they'll be positioned to where they'll be shown a million brands. Mm-hmm. And the broker will say, okay, we'll narrow it down to your top 10. You know, and then they'll do a little more homework. Okay, narrow it down to your top 5. Do a little more homework, do a little more investigating. All right, pick your 2 favorites. This whole person doesn't even know what the hell they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's my issue. It's like, why don't you find out what they want to do first before you start showing them used cars?
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody who's going to buy a used car, they kind of know what they want, right? That may change, and that's okay. And then you have another aspect of franchising called an FSO, Franchise Sales Organization. We were with one for a long time. They were great to us, so I have no issues with that. They were amazing partners to us. But usually the way that it works is, you know, a candidate will be put with a broker. They pick their brand, they pick what it is they want to do, what they're going to invest in. They're then passed on to an FSO, a Franchise Sales Organization. Usually those FSOs are partnered with a brand. Yeah. You know, we had one for a while. So then that candidate is vetted through the FSO. I want to change this game. I want to do everything I can to make a better positive impact in it and kind of change how it's done. You know, IFA and the big franchise organizations, they're starting to acknowledge this and they're doing a little bit of stuff about it, which is awesome. I think it needs to be done. But for me, I wanted to do it with a little bit more in what I call integrity, right? Hence the name, Integrity Brands. And so what I want to do is try to alleviate a lot of the mistakes that Yvonne and I made for these people that need help and want to really franchise their brand. And a lot of times I'll get clients that'll call me and they'll say, man, I really want to franchise this. And I'm like, okay, well, I have a system that I usually try to put people through. This wasn't rocket science, man. I didn't like sit down and develop this. You know, I got this thinking back along the stepping stones that Yvonne and I took when we franchised Clean Eats. Yeah. I was a carpenter in my previous life. And you guys in your marketing firm actually helped me come up with this conceptual idea of building a house, right? Which is perfect. It's in my wheelhouse. It's what I know. And so we call it the IB Blueprint. You know, we cover concept development, branding, systemization, operations, scaling, the whole 9 yards. But it all starts at the top with the why. Why are you doing this? And everybody's like, they'll give me their reason. Well, blah, 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 blah. No emotion. Yeah. No nothing. You know, it's like, well, I like cars. Well, that's not good enough. And
Do you
I
know
always
how to
say,
drive a car? I
yeah,
mean, it's the same with placing. Good.
but I'm like, these people, when they come in, if you're going to franchise this and you're going to try to get people to invest in your brand and partner with you, I'm trying on purpose not to use the word sale. And I'm going to get into why I don't want to do that
Yeah.
on a whole nother episode because it's another topic in and of itself. The word sale in franchising drives me up the freaking
Yeah.
wall. So you're not selling franchises. You're strategically partnering with people. But anyway, when you get people that tries to invest in your brand, they're investing in you, right? When people come to, they're interested in investing in Clean Eats, they're investing in me and Yvonne at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm not being arrogant or anything by saying that, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. Let's
Mm.
just call it what it is. So you have to have a really strong why. And then we just run them through different bits and pieces of this. And so I guess you and I are going to talk about, okay, you want a franchise? What does that really look like? What is it? What are the bits and pieces that you need to know and that you have to have and understand how to build
Mm-hmm.
before you flip the light on and go advertising this thing? Make sense?
It's total, yeah. And I think it's timely because there are a lot. I mean, maybe it's just the world we live in, but we see a lot of independent brands that are taking the franchise route because they just see the numbers of the possibility of, oh my goodness, I could have multi-unit, 500,000 deep, and more of these means more money. And it's like, dude, it's to the point. I like cars. Well, have you ever driven one? Because liking them and operating one are two different things, man.
The perfect example that I want to use today in this episode is my buddy Den here in town. You know, if you're around Wilmington,
Good dude.
you've heard of Tap Tea,
Yeah.
and Den's not going to mind that I talk about this and share his situation, his story, and his journey that he's currently on.
Yeah.
I know he won't. He's actually probably going to be kind of excited about it. Den came to me. I had a buddy reach out, and we have a mutual friend, and he said, "Hey, you know, Den's thinking about franchising Tap Tea Bar." I'm like, that's gonna be cool, man,
Yeah.
because he has
It's
a
great
really
concept.
cool concept.
Yeah.
It's a boba tea concept, and boba right now is taking off.
I don't think it's going anywhere either. It's right generational point. It's
yeah,
gonna
we were just
track.
talking about on the
Yeah.
last episode those Gen Zs or Gen
Yeah,
Zs.
dude, and they're gonna carry it with them. They're very loyal customers, by the way.
Yeah,
Sorry.
one of our guys, his daughter goes every day and gets one.
Oh, yeah.
$8 teas, by the way.
My daughter, same thing, man, and she absolutely will stick with the one that she loves. She loves Tap. So once you
But
get them,
so anyway, he calls me up and says, "Den, you know, he's thinking about franchising Tap Tea." I said, "All right." He said, "Well, I kind of told him I think he needs to come and sit down with you." I said, "Well, why is that?" He's like, "Well, he's got a contract from this brokerage, you know, firm that wants to do all this work for him." He's like, "But man, I don't really think that's a good idea." I said, "Absolutely. I'll clear my schedule tomorrow. I'll have him come and talk to me." So he comes in and he sits down with me and he's like, "Hey man, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm doing. I have this deal here. Do you mind taking a look at this for me?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Well, Den's a charismatic guy.
oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he
You
likes.
never met a stranger,
Yeah.
man. That guy just opens right up.
You could
I
drop
love
him
about-
off in Cambodia. He's coming back
I
with
love
15,
that. Yeah,
15 new friends.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
And so as he's talking to me, I'm reading his thing, and I'm just kind of like, oh my god. And I kind of shut it, and I looked at him, and I was like, I don't care what you take away from this meeting, but do not sign this. Whatever you do, do not sign this. I said, you will regret it. You will regret it. You're paying an astronomical amount of money to do something that, you know, you have this entrepreneurial spirit. You can do this on your own and save 6 figures of money doing it. It's going to be a longer journey.
Yeah, it's more organic, clearly.
But in the long run, you're gonna respect the fact that you did it. Trust me. And so, you know, I told him, I said, look, I have a consulting company. I'm not selling you. You don't have to do this, but I will help you get this started. Charge you a minimum amount of fee just for my time.
Yeah.
I don't want any equity in your company. I don't want any franchise fee money. I don't want any of that. I just like to build brands, and I'm going to help you do this because I don't want to see you go down this path. And so he was honestly, man, from a brand that was already put together, he was kind of like my first client. I'd already helped a few other small ones here and there, but you know, he's the first real brand that I've helped kind of get off the ground. And so he agreed, and we've been working on this. But I think where I'm going with this story is, I think he kind of underestimated everything underneath that one document that we call the franchise disclosure document, the FDD and the franchise
Yeah.
agreement. He forgot about all the layers underneath that iceberg.
It's a lift. I mean, that's everything. That's the playbook, the Bible, the whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. So then it was
Yeah.
just, from there, it was sitting down with him and saying, well, do you have a training manual?
Yeah.
No. Do you have an operations manual? No. And I said, Den, you have the exact same problem that me and Yvonne had when we went to franchise Clean Eats. It took us months to get everything that was up here in our nugget
Yeah. What are they buying?
out
How
on
you
paper.
formalize it? Yeah.
You have to give them something tangible. That's what they're investing in. They're investing in really what is in your head, what you came up with. You've got to be able to duplicate that and hand it to them. You've got to be able to give it to them and let them run it.
Yeah. Systems of scale. I mean, that's.
And so really that's what we're kind of in the process of doing with him is, he's got a very strong why. And I don't know if he's shared this with you.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. It's very compelling. I mean, background.
he's got an Asian background, and to tell his family story and how he kind of got into this is pretty cool. But, we've got his FDD done, and all of his legal stuff that you have to do, the mundane stuff. That took a little time, but we got it. Well, now all the fun. I said, now that we have this done, this is where the heavy lifting comes in. We've got to work on your training manuals, your ops manuals. And then I said, we haven't even got to the marketing and the branding, because that's going to be one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
You've got a really cool brand here in Wilmington. Everybody in Wilmington, knows Tap Tea.
Local celebrity. Yeah.
But you've got to create that experience to make it look bigger. You know what I mean? You've got to build a brand from the ground up.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. You guys are helping him do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, he has the you're right. The concept is awesome. I mean, everything shakes out. There's a really active market right now that I think is the right market too, because it's kind of like what you guys went through with Clean Eats. You brought in people that'll stick with you, and his market skews maybe a little younger because of the product. So it's not like it's an aging market that's going to be gone. I hate to say this, it's going to be gone in a decade. It's just going to be evolved and having kids and all
It'll
that.
evolutionize.
Yeah, exactly. So the trickiest part with what he's doing is he's so creative. He is so creative. And if Dim was, we'll have to get him on a show. It's almost reeling in the creativity so it can be scaled. It's, as you said, it's like when it's corporate owned, buck stops with you, man. You can do whatever you want. But now you're giving a piece of your soul, your baby, your brand baby, to strangers, and you got to make sure that it's not some obnoxious little bastard running around and screaming at the top of its lungs when they're babysitting it, because guess what, it's going to be in their hands now. So trying to come up and keep the aura that he's developed, but make it so we can scale it out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And that's, for us, to your point earlier on the brand development and market position side, that's the trickiest part with emerging franchises, is reeling them in. It's not, unusual.
How'd you like reeling my wife in?
She was amazing. She taught me everything I know, man. I always joke, like, no, I mean, but
you're saying that because she knows that, that she's going to listen.
She's watching. She'll beat me up if I no, but Yvonne's a good example. She has big ideas, and she has big personality. She's larger than life. Yvonne Verity walks into a room, Yvonne Verity's in that room, and that's how your locations were, your corporate owns. And I remember, I told you this earlier, I was like, I remember when I finally got comfortable talking to Yvonne as a friend more than a vendor. I was like, I remember walking into the location, one of your Wilmington locations, and being like, I just walked into Yvonne Verity's brain. I mean, it's loud, there's stuff everywhere and all that. But when we started talking about getting print vendors that would be able to replicate it, not only was it tricky on production side, it was tricky on budget side. You're going to tell your franchisees that they have to drop X amount to have thousands of posters. So we went into more digital realms, and just thinking that way ahead of schedule with an emerging franchise is an advantage through, Integrity Brands, to have that knowledge and be like, dude, yeah, it looks really cool because you can afford it, but you might, to your point, have someone investing their life savings where they don't want to have a $500,000 build out because you've got posters as part of your persona, or posters as an example. But So managing, and I talk about a lot of like functional design, but managing creativity responsibly, excuse me, is really difficult to tell. It's almost like you're the bubble burster, right? But it has to be addressed up front, or else you being the franchisor, are going to be facing a bunch of pissed off people that realize I bought into something that is going to cost me more than I can afford. And I just need a runway to get there. And they're requiring it day one. So, uh,
And that's only on the branding.
that's just the branding, man. Like,
We
what
haven't
about
even-
product side and all that other stuff? Yeah.
We haven't talked about
The thing that makes them money.
right. You know, you've got to start. You got to look at it as, why am I here? What's my purpose, or the why of the company? Where,
That's
what does the
everything.
company stand for? Which falls into what you were just talking about. Well, then you've got all the little mundane bullshit that nobody likes to deal with, and that's kind of where I'm at with him right now. Is, okay, I'm like, dude, I need a complete equipment list from you. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to walk through
Like
and pinpoint
inventory.
every one of these things, and then we got to put a list together and go, okay, well, how do we package this up? Probably more than likely go save you some money on it, and then get it to where people can duplicate this same package.
And you start getting buying power. Like
Yeah.
you guys were able to
And I'm using
yeah.
food, or, you know, I'm using the food and beverage industry as an example, guys, because that's what I mean, and that's kind of, you know, the story that we're telling here. But, you know, this is with anything. This could be a service industry,
Yeah.
anything. But, you know, getting every component of this brand packaged up in a box to where you can put a pretty little bow on it, and making sure that it's duplicatable over and over and over again. Not only that, but make sure people can fucking afford it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you want it to be an affordable, as turnkey as possible opportunity. I mean, that's what gets them. And then you still, you know, there's still onus on the franchisee making that work within their territory. But at the end of the day, it comes down to consistency and deliverable. And to your point, the product side, the thing that actually makes you the money.
Right. And so I keep touching on the same points because I think they're important. Like, you got to start with, why am I doing this? Then you got to take a look at your operation and go, can somebody else do this? Could I put this together and teach everyone how to do this, not just one demographic of people? And then you got to say, okay, well, you know, how's my branding? You know, does the brand look appealing? You know, I could sell sub sandwiches tomorrow and call it Don Subs. Is that going to work? Probably not. It's not. You know what I mean? But like in Den's case, it's Tap T-Bar. He's got the little goofy monsters. He's
little boba
He's
monster.
got such a cool fucking vibe to it. I love it. But you've got that. And then the most important piece, does it make money? I think that's the one thing.
No, you're in economics.
The unit economics. Does it make money? That is the one thing. The one thing I think everybody forgets. And I've had a couple people, you know, I won't tell you who, but I've had a couple people message me here in the last few days, and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about franchising this. I know when they message me, because I know the business they're in. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah, like, how can you make this?
You might be making enough money to sustain yourself. You know, it might be enough for you to live on, and you might be putting some cash away. It's not sustainable for a franchise, though. People don't want to buy a job. And I
think that's the key. And I think, to your point, whether it's coming through a sales organization or not, my experience, what I've seen in the last decade or so, is there are good brokers out there. So I'm saying, but I've seen cases where they're matching up the ability to buy, not the ability to run it.
Correct.
And that's a concern, because then you have, again, someone driving a car doesn't know how to drive, but they could afford the car. It's not a good formula.
It's not, man.
No, I mean, you're going to get a lot of pissed off franchisees that come to you after about 6 months to 12 months saying, it's not working. This is your baby. I bought into you, and now it's not working. What am I going to do?
And sometimes, man, you don't have any control over that.
It's going to, it's almost inevitable.
And the example, I'll use us as an example, man. We've brought people into our brand who, you know, made it through the financial qualifications. You know, they built their unit out. They're in business 6 months, 8 months, a year, call it. But they're not managing their money right. You know what I mean? You get a little bit of taste of making money, and if you're not smart enough to manage that cash flow, you're done.
That's why I
And
wear the
that's
same
happened a
shirt
few
every
times.
episode. I mean, this is
Man, I wasn't gonna bag your nuts on that.
no, dude. The other thing you brought up that, and I don't want to like derail.
Wait, hold on. Can you just do me like every show? Can Steve Bond's thing
We're
just be
clearly
like a?
filming this multiple shows the same day.
But can we just wear like a new button up?
Yeah,
Can that be your thing?
you
The
don't even
button
have to
up?
ask. That is my thing. I mean, I'm gonna be
No t-shirts, no polos.
by the time this thing's really rolling. I want sponsors that untuck it. Just kidding. To the point that you're making, and I don't want to like my natural instinct is to go brand development. Your natural's ops, right? But there's another component, and you mentioned it with Tap T and the Boba Monster, which Din created himself, and it is a killer identity piece, right? Securing that brand. Systems to secure and to have brand security is critical. You guys went through this where
We still go.
we don't have to
through
talk
man.
about it, but like people bastardizing outside of the brand standard. How do you like having a system or as close as you can get to a system that at least puts a little bit of that lockdown so it doesn't go against what the whole mission stood for, which is that, there's so many little invisible things that aren't thought out of in the beginning.
There's tons of them.
And I don't even, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe it's just willful blindness because like, I just want to sell, man. But it will bite you in the butt later on, man. You know this firsthand.
I mean, to be honest with you, man, that's, back in January, we switched our development team up. I mean, I basically scrapped it and started over. The one that we were with are great. They are awesome people. They're still very good friends of mine, and it wasn't a bad breakup or anything. It was the right time. We had reached the right time in the evolution of the company, and I just called him and said, hey, man, we have to go a different direction now. I have got to be a little bit more strategic if I'm going to go. We're at 110 units. If I'm going to grow this thing to 200, 300, 400, I've got to be very, very picky on who I put in now. We can't just, not that we were doing this. But the saying is we can't just sell this to anybody breathing.
Yeah.
Right. And we were very lax for the first few years. And sometimes you have to get momentum. You got to kind of lean back on your expectations a little bit. You don't have to.
Blew up. You grew from when we got there. I think you guys are around 17, maybe 20.
Man, I don't even remember.
Within a short amount of time, you're up over 100. I mean, and I'm looking at it from an outside, semi-outsider, but I was involved in any of the marketing and brand. We helped out with that. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's you and Yvonne at the top of that pinnacle or pyramid. And I know people that have brought you guys up and be like, man, I want to be like Clean Eats. They blew up. Man, they were able to knock out 80 units in whatever amount of time. I was like, yeah, but you got to talk to them because...
And here's the crazy part.
There's responsibility that comes with that too. It's not
from just call it 2019 to 20 the end of 24.
Right, we lost years in COVID.
We turned down more people than we approved.
Also, we went through a pandemic, and I, not to bring back, but like that
was
crazy.
our best year,
right? Yeah, that's. I mean, the idea that the ship stayed afloat at all, and I'm saying this as a compliment during the 2020, 2021, and parts of 2022 is amazing, but it grew. Yeah, man. It's like, and so I think from the outside, and this does play into what we're talking about, is there's a lot of glossy glitz when I don't know if that's a term, but when you're looking at where you guys are at or other brands, but know what you're signing up for and make sure you got ink in the pen before you put it to paper because you're going to get there and you're going to be tearing a hole. It's just not, sorry. So, I mean, I think with emerging brands, like you're bringing up Tap as an example, Tap T-Bar, the fact that they're thinking this way now, I can't tell you how many brands where we've come in 50, 60, 70 units deep where I wish they would have been thinking the same way earlier.
Well, what I was afraid of, and how do I say this one? What I was afraid of with Den was his model. The unit economics are really good. They're really good. Had he gone the other route and gone with like a brokerage network that just would have just pumped the shit out of that thing, he would have grew this to 200, 300 locations in a matter of just a couple of years. But what I was afraid of is it's so simple to run too. He would have just lost control of it. And I've seen that happen more, more times than I can even count.
When you say lose control, do you mean like people replicating?
No, I mean, he wouldn't have been able to keep up with the support.
Yeah. Oh,
and then it just ultimately would have damaged his brand.
Which is a whole nother episode. And this is, I can say this, you might not be comfortable talking about it because you have a franchise. I don't. We do brand development and marketing with franchises. But
I'll talk about it.
Okay, so at some point I want a totally different episode, but at what point is your responsibility to support each franchise location being conflated into what they should be doing too? Like
that's
you
from
said,
day one.
Right? But that is a really common misconception we see among young they think they're buying their corporate team. Like, hey man, I paid X amount of money, I want direct access, what have you done for me lately, is the mindset. And it's like, we gave you the license to represent and sell our products in your community, and with that comes there's a whole bunch of stuff that
you're dipping your toe into a very, very good episode that we need to do, and I plan on doing it.
Okay, cool.
But I have a guy that I want to come and talk on it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's our new development guy.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm going to have him on the show.
This is where
that one will blow everybody's mind away.
It will, because in talking to him, I talked to him.
But to answer your question, it's from day one. But I think the common misconception in franchising right now, across the board, doesn't matter what kind of company you have or brand you have, is they think that they're paying royalties in for that support.
They're not.
They're not. Royalties are just a cut.
It's a cut.
Call it what it is. It is a cut
for selling your thing, as Kevin would
say. They do not pay for support.
Yeah.
It does not pay for support. Now, is that money used for support? Hell yeah, it is. That's what bankrolls the company. But that's not the real reason why those are paid. It's a cut. It's the brand's.
Hey man, we're on the marketing side of all this stuff. That's the first to get, maybe not where you're talking about from the ops side, but I'm saying we get our head to the chop block quite a bit. Well, I put I'm not speaking on your behalf, I'm speaking on other brands. We do 2% towards a national brand fund, and my store didn't get any sales last month, or from that 2% or whatever. And it's like, that's not what it's there for.
Oh, that's a perception thing.
It's a perception, but it plays into what royalties are there for. And I think it is. I think you bring like Kevin in, because I will say this, when I spoke with him, and this is kind of a teaser, I guess, to that episode, his philosophy was such a breath of fresh air, man.
Wasn't it?
Oh my God.
Man, the day I talked to that guy on the phone, I got introduced to him through another franchisor here in town. And it was when I was right around the time I was thinking about, okay, who do I need to talk to if I'm going to make a change in development? I got to have somebody kind of over. I'm not going to bring in a chief development officer.
Yeah.
Like I don't need that, but I need somebody to help me run lead generation, lead flow, that sort of thing. And, he said, you need to call this guy. I said, okay. If anybody knows me, man, I hate talking on the phone. Like, I am a man of few words unless I'm on this show and I'm talking into one of these things, but not very talkative. I talked to that guy for 2.5 hours on the phone over franchising and the philosophy behind it, different issues, different problems, this, that, and the other thing. I was so geeked up by the time I got off the phone, called my wife. I'm like, hey, I found my person.
Yeah,
I think I found my soulmate in franchising.
Well, because I think and listen, we don't have to, we're getting probably a little too far. This should be the episode when he comes in, but it's not just, again, what have you done for me lately? It's a two-way street. In his philosophy, it's like there's a franchisee, a license holder, and there's the franchisor, and there's responsibilities on both ends. It's not just you bought my license, therefore you own my ass. Like that's not a good relationship for anyone.
At the end of the day, you're partnering together.
You're partnering, yeah.
To take care of a customer.
Right. So anyway, we probably deviated, but back to the original point, and using Tap T-Bar as kind of the example, it's also a breath of fresh air to see then being receptive to planning now, because a lot of folks don't. They want to get to that 100, and when I have the money, then right, yeah, and then they don't understand when they get to the 100 why it doesn't feel as good, and then it's like, well, let me get to 200, and then I'll start. Like, they succumb to growth, and they don't ever have formalization to sustain it.
Right,
it's nuts.
We're still dealing with it. We're at 110 units. There was things. We're dealing with issues now that when I think back about it, I'm like, I really wish we would have had somebody like advising us on like straightening this shit out at like
Yeah.
20, 30 units.
But you wouldn't have known at that point. You were just you're doing what you knew to do.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, in essence,
That's
Integrity
that's
Brands. That's
Integrity
why I
Brand.
started
Yeah.
it. It's the whole mission behind it. So I know, guys, I'm using the shameless plug here, but if you have a brand and you're thinking about franchising it or scaling it, please reach out to me. Go to integritybrands.com. It's brands with a Z, BRANDZ.com. Before you call anybody else.
Yeah.
Or
I mean, it's
go to
the real
one of
deal.
those big sharks. What else you got on this?
That's it, man. No, I think we covered it was a good like teaser into probably more episodes where we really dive into the aspects of consideration before you just start saying, hey, I'm going to turn this thing into a franchise and sell it. Because you've seen it and we have seen it. We've seen it go either way. And learn from those around you, man.
Touche.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Till next time.
Take care, guys.